The Curious Case of Alphonse by JAE Cole. The waves crashed on the shore, and a gentle sun warmed my face as I stared out at the sea. Behind me, I heard Sarah and Jenny's laughter and smiled. For the first time in my life, everything felt perfect. It had taken years, but I finally had my family back. I turned to them, back to that perfect picnic on a perfect day. But another man wearing the same beach shorts and plaid shirt as me was already there, sitting with them. They laughed, and he leaned in and kissed Sarah. "Hey!" I called out to them. "Stop it! That's my wife!" But it was like they couldn't hear me. Neither of them reacted at all. "Arthur," said Sarah, "it's so good to have you back." "Yeah, Daddy," Jenny chimed in. "We've missed you." The man, his back still turned to me, held them close. "Don't worry," he said. "This is just the beginning. We're going to get a big house and Daddy's going to start his company again." I felt a tug in my belly and a strange vertigo that made my head swim. "No," I whispered as I made my way to them. "We aren't going back to the way things were. I promised things would be different." I tried to speak more, but it was like my voice was trapped in my throat. It took all my strength to reach the man, and the second I put my hand on his back, he turned, whirling around in my face with violent speed. He took hold of my collar and stared directly in my eyes. Only then did I realize that he looked exactly like me. "Don't you understand?" he said. "You've taken me as far as you can. I need more." His words struck me like an electric charge, and I felt the edges of my vision starting to go gray. What's happening?" The nightmare shattered. There was a flash of white light, and I was jolted awake by the vicious pull at the center of my stomach. It was like a great claw had reached inside, grabbed hold of my spine, and ripped me from the bed. I was pulled across the floor. In the glint of the moonlight, the fast-approaching sliding glass door of the bedroom balcony gleamed, the unforgiving glass ready to greet my face. But instead of the inevitable crunch, I passed right through, without so much as a hint of friction. I continued on, right off the ledge, straight into the night sky. I was flying. Wait, that couldn't be right. It was impossible. "Okay," I thought, "let's try this again." I took a deep breath, holding it until I felt the grip in my stomach fade and my body come to a stop. Then I opened my eyes. In front of me, several meters away, was the edge of my balcony. Well, that's not so bad, I thought. I peered down at my feet. They hung 30 meters off the ground. My heart immediately started to pound in my chest. I expected to fall, to plummet to my death at any moment, but somehow I kept on floating. Apparently, it wasn't like the cartoons. My body didn't seem to care if I noticed or not. "I'm still dreaming," I said, or at least tried to say. It came out more like, "I'm still dreaming." Everything was garbled nonsense, like my brain had suddenly been cut off from my mouth. My hands, too, even as I desperately tried to raise them and grab hold of the balcony, barely moved, trapped in slow motion. Even my vision was off, the night taking on a surreal glow, as if the sharp edges of the world had been chiseled away. I peered through the apartment window, back into the bedroom I'd been ripped from, and felt a wave of fresh panic. There in my bed I saw my body. Stranger still, on top of my chest was a small, black-scaled demon, complete with a pair of blood-red wings. It, it looked like it was trying to kiss me. It reminded me of a painting I had once saw. Someone's vision of a nightmare. I think it was called an Alp, a nightmare demon. I tried to yell, to scream something at the creature, but all I could manage was "Gvakt." At the same time, I struggled to kick my legs, somehow thinking flying would be like swimming. It wasn't. I didn't move an inch. How can I? No sooner did I think about being by my bedside than I felt another tug in my belly, followed by a pull. Instantly, I was there, back in the bedroom. The creature paid no attention to me. It was hunched over, very close to my body's mouth. I realized then a little kiss was the least of my worries. A strange red energy was flowing between me, or at least my body, and the little beast. Was this... was it my life force? My soul, maybe? I lunged forward in a desperate attempt to push the demon off. A white barrier of pure light erupted around the imp, throwing me to the floor. I tried to push myself up, but found my arms, even when I could get them to listen to me, passed right through the wood as if they were air. I struggled in vain. My body stuck, my arms and face half phased into the floor. And then it hit me. I'd gotten back into the room with desire. It was my mind, not my body. I had to think. I closed my eyes and focused. As soon as I found the intent, there was a pull in my stomach, and my body floated its way toward the closet. With another thought, I righted myself, and with just a bit more focus, even had my arms moving again. I couldn't help but smile. Maybe I was getting the hang of this. As the closet door approached, I ducked my head confidently and phased right through. I knew what I needed, its image clear in my mind. I reached, or rather, thought about reaching, through the fabric of my sports bag. A moment later, my hand came to hold an aluminum, glowing baseball bat. I raised the dream weapon high over my head and with another thought hurled myself at the demon. With all my strength, I swung at its head. The creature didn't even flinch as the white barrier once again erupted around it. The bat glanced off harmlessly and slammed into the wall. What's that saying? If at first you don't succeed. Well, who was I to argue with the wisdom of the ages, so I raised the weapon again. I wouldn't do that if I were you, said a soft voice. You'll just tire yourself out. I turned and, passing through the window, I saw something even stranger than the demon. The creature was beautiful in an otherworldly way, its form slender and elegant, the skin of its pale face glowing as if it were made of moonlight, sharply contrasting its large black eyes. It wore a long white robe that hid the rest of its features, save for its bald, overly large head. Who are you? It's what I wanted to say, but only the strange garbled mess would come out. Warang you. The creature laughed, and it settled beside me. Mr. Brightside, at your service. Did you forget? Mr. Brightside was much smaller than I realized, barely reaching my knee at his full height, and there was something about his presence that demanded respect. I wanted to say, forget what, but all I managed was a pitiable, for... What a mess you've landed in, he chided. Can't even string a sentence together and still picking fights. There was something familiar about him, like an older brother. Maybe it was the all-knowing tone he used. Whatever it was, it made my blood boil. What did he know? I raised the bat again and swung. Again the white barrier rose, and the bat glanced off, striking my body in the shoulder. The demon shrieked and cast a wary eye at me. The white shield extended out further, covering my body completely and sealing it off. Now there was nothing I could do. "Why did you come back here?" said Mr. Brightside. "You left for a reason, you know. Now you're causing nothing but trouble." He rose up and floated toward the window. "Come on. You shouldn't be here anyway." I looked at my body and then helplessly at Mr. Brightside. "Was doing I blathered. "It's not doing anything to you," said Mr. Brightside. "It's preparing to enter the vessel. Only one of us can claim it at a time." "That's my body. It belongs to me," I said, taken aback by the sudden clarity of my voice. Mr. Brightside floated back to me and extended a long vine-like arm, placing it on my shoulder. "See there? You're already coming back to yourself. Good connections are few and far between, and you were dug in like a tick. But nobody and no body belongs to us. They are merely vessels of experience." He gave an encouraging smile. "No shame in it," he said. "We all need a new vessel at some point. Certainly wouldn't want to get stuck without one. Now that would be terrible." I looked at the demon feeding on my body. There had to be a way to remove it. Mr. Brightside had to know something that could help. "Please, can't you do something?" He shook his head. "Once a bond is made, can't be unmade. As I said, this vessel's been claimed." He sighed and hovered to the edge of the window. I came to help you because I once said I would, but I'm certainly not going to waste my whole night here. Stay or go, it's up to you. I stared at my body. My eyes shifted back and forth from my sleeping face to the small demon. I felt a strange feeling come over me. The more I stared at my face, the less familiar it seemed to look. In fact, the more I stared at my body, the more I began to wonder if it was really me. It seemed so foreign, uncanny, an odd wax doppelganger that wasn't quite right, unsettling even. If I wanted to come back, all I have to do is think about this place. Is that right? I asked Mr. Brightside. He smiled at me, his thin slit of a mouth curling up impossibly wide. Now that's an interesting notion. I suppose one could if they fancied, he said. But of course none ever do. I nodded. If he didn't want to tell me anything, I'd follow him long enough to get my own answers. All right then, I said. Just show me the way. Mr. Brightside smiled. He rolled up one of his sleeves and, with his wispy, leafy green fingers, drew a rectangle in the air. A moment later, the invisible lines began to glow. They extended and joined, molding into a frame that slowly grew solid. Within a few seconds, a heavy wooden door was hovering in the middle of the room. This'll get us moving a little faster, he said. You don't mind, do you? Where does it go? I asked. He flicked his fingers and the doorknob turned. It swung open. Then he turned to me and gave a bow. Anywhere we want. Mr. Brightside wasted no time, immediately diving into the darkness beyond. I looked into the doorway. How strange. The darkness, the void, it seemed inviting somehow. I took one last look at my body, at the demon still frozen, drinking up the red energy. As my eyes lingered on it, an intense disgust filled me. There was no stench. But just the same, I could feel decay permeating into me. It wasn't coming from the demon either. It was the body. I tried to remember why it had been so special to me and why I wanted to go back. I heard the sound of a beach in my memory and tried to hold on to it, but it seemed so distant, as if it were just a dream. I looked back at the eyes. Had such a grotesque thing really been mine? It seemed impossible now that I really looked at it. When I looked back at the door, the air on the other side seemed so fresh, an escape from this place. The darkness was scary, sure, but I couldn't deny I felt exhilarated at finding out what was on the other side. I didn't even give my body another thought as I leapt. There was darkness, the slight rush of air, and then a wonderful softness. My eyes struggled to adjust. I reached out with my arms, trying to get my bearings through the dark folds of fabric. I heard a strange electronic beeping sound intermittently pinging in the darkness and could smell the slight scent of some sort of disinfectant. That wasn't nearly as awful as I expected. Once the door opened into a volcano. Can you believe that? Said Mr. Brightside, his voice somewhere to my left. Where are we? I asked. Not sure, he said. But if I had to guess, I'd say we landed on pillows. I mean, we usually end up in bedrooms after all. I can't see anything, I grumbled. Not to worry, said Mr. Brightside. Lumen lupacius. A spark lit the room. Across the floorboards, I saw a handful of glowing seeds scatter in all directions. Roots took hold quickly, and soon there were 20 small, perfectly manicured bonsai trees in 2 neat rows on either side of us. They were filled with flowers, each one's petals glowing in a soft green hue that lit the room around us. That's a nice trick, I said. Mr. Brightside laughed. That one I learned from my last vessel. He was a gardener, I think. In the new light, I saw we were in the corner of an incredibly large room. Both Mr. Brightside and I straddled a large stuffed animal, judging by the angle. It was some sort of teddy bear, easily twice my size, and it was dwarfed by a massive chair that supported it. Scattered on the floor were others, a dog, a goat, even an octopus. It was like we had suddenly entered the land of the giant plushies. Or was it the other way around? Had we somehow gotten smaller? Across the room, lying in a mountain of a bed with protective bars, was a young girl. She was hooked up to an IV, and then I suddenly understood what the beeping was about. They were machines monitoring her vitals. This wasn't a bedroom, it was a hospital. Why are we in a place like this? I said. And why is everything so big? No time for that, said Mr. Brightside. Hurry, there isn't much time. We floated across the room and up the massive frame of the girl's bed. Mr. Brightside beckoned me to follow him. Once we got within a few meters, another white barrier erupted around the girl's body, just like the one the demon had erected around mine earlier. I watched Mr. Brightside as he stopped, hovering just outside of it. He solemnly bowed his head and began to whisper. His face, smooth and featureless though it was, took on a serious look, as if he were intently focused on something only he could see. And if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. What are you doing? Mr. Brightside swiftly turned and smacked me in the stomach. I doubled over and my voice cut out. Hey, make the offering or you'll get us both killed, he snapped at me. I can't believe you forgot that too. I glared at him, but repeated the words as he had said them. In saying them, I felt the strangest sense of peace. Not only did I feel I had almost certainly said them before, but I felt their meaning. But no, this wasn't me. These weren't my words. They were something the girl had said before, probably this very night, maybe even every night. It was like they were floating in the air, emanating out of her and flowing into me as I melded with them. How could that be? There was no time to think. The white barrier shattered, bursting in a brilliant scattering of light. Mr. Brightside floated to the edge of her bed. I felt another strange surge of déjà vu. Come, he said. I think we can move closer now. I didn't even question whether or not to obey. As I looked at the girl, I felt an instant connection. Her body, it seemed so much more alive, so right, so me. What do I do? I asked. Go to her quickly, said Mr. Brightside. We aren't the only ones out searching tonight. From underneath the crack in the door, a large black mist filtered into the room. It snaked its way along the floor and up the bed. It swirled violently, forming into a hard shape that finally condensed into a small, shaggy beast with hair so thick I could barely make out its yellow, glowing eyes. We were here first, said Mr. Brightside. Find another vessel. You can't claim a vessel, said the beast. It shall decide. Those are the rules. It jumped over our heads, softly landing on the young girl's chest. She frowned slightly. The heart rate monitor increasing ever so slightly, but other than a mild discomfort, she didn't seem to notice the creature. Hurry, said Mr. Brightside. Make an offer, or she might choose the other one. But how do I? Good God, just touch her. It's not complicated. Just copy that abrasive whelp. Mr. Brightside pointed at the shaggy beast. Not wanting to hurt the girl, I ever so carefully placed my foot onto her belly. She didn't react. Even as I pressed down with all my weight, I was barely able to make the slightest indentation on her blanket. I looked at the beast. It was frozen now. The familiar red light was already pouring from its mouth into the girl's. Was I too late? I could see her eyes straining. She didn't like something. Her body gave a sudden jerk, and in a sharp burst of white light, the beast was thrown back as its connection was severed. She rejected me. I was only trying to help, it cried. Quick, said Mr. Brightside, make the link before it tries again. I started to ask how, but a memory quickly rose inside of me. Just open your mouth. Open yourself to the host, came a strange voice from within. It felt familiar. Was it me? But this wasn't one of my memories. I was Arthur Reynolds, born in Where was it again? That's right, I didn't need to know because that was from before. Wait, how could there be a before? I shook my head, dazed. It didn't matter. Looking at the girl's face, the obvious pain there, any doubts flooded away. I knew, deep inside, this was more important. The past didn't matter. She needed me now. I could feel it. I needed to connect. I opened my mouth and closed my eyes. From deep in my body, where my stomach met my spine, I felt the core of my being pulse, and I felt a pull like nothing else. I was pulled inward, down into that spot, condensed into a single speck of being before being shot outward. I lost myself in that shock wave, my mind going blank. And when I regained my senses, I was sitting on the branch of a large oak tree. The girl was beside me. She was wearing a beautiful summer dress and a large pink hat. Thankfully, she was no longer a giant and looked more or less like a normal-sized person. "Are you here to help me too?" she asked. I, yes, I am. "Well, what are you going to do about that?" She pointed down. A large snake, nearly 20 feet long, with a body as thick as a barrel, was climbing the tree, moving right toward us. My heart started to pound. What could I do? Kick it? Maybe grab a branch and club it on the head? On both counts, it was too large and getting closer. "This way," I said. I held up my hand and started to climb. The girl followed. We went up the branches, tens of meters, until the snake was far from view. "But won't it keep coming?" asked the girl. I gave her a wink. "Then we'll climb higher." For the first time, she smiled. We both looked up and watched as the tree extended up. It didn't stop, going up and up, so far that we couldn't see where it ended. "That's more like it," she said. "I think you'll do." I nodded to her and held out my hand, my mind suddenly clear. I finally understood. "If you don't mind," I said, "I'd like to go back, just for a moment. I need to thank someone." There was another flash of light, and suddenly I was back in the hospital room. Mr. Brightside was sitting beside me, grinning. Little Beast was there too, glaring at me. "I guess you got accepted," it said. "Hm. I tried to kill the snake. Isn't that what one would usually do?" The shaggy one's body relaxed, and it slowly formed back into a mist, this time filtering into an air conditioning vent. "He was too violent," said the girl, her eyes now open and staring right at me. "I think you're a better match." "Spot on," said Mr. Brightside. "I knew you were the type. It's a rare wisp willing to lose themselves in the vessel. We'll earn our wings yet." I smiled, and for some reason the mention of wings put me in mind of Arthur. Arthur. Wait, what was our last name again? I mean, we had worked as what was our job? He loved going to the beach in, but even the name of the town slipped out of my mind until there was nothing left save for the vague feeling of a dream that might have been. In that empty space, the real me was finally free to fill the space again. "I'll leave it to you," said Mr. Brightside, slapping me on the back and out of my reverie. "We'll see each other tomorrow morning. I'm with the artists. It's going to be great partnering up again." He slowly floated up to the ceiling, and as he did, I remembered. An old shrine on the back of a rice farm from many years ago and half a world away. There had been flashes of light, coins being tossed into an offering bin. A young woman wearing an odd leather bracer and an old man had prayed. They had asked for protection for their family, and for some reason they had meant it more than most. That's where we were born. Mr. Brightside winked at me as he floated up toward the roof. This time, in full recognition, I winked back. "I owe you one," I said. "And so the shoe is finally on the other foot," he said. He broke into a fit of gleeful laughter as he phased through the ceiling and was gone. Then I smiled and looked at the girl. Are you ready? I asked. She nodded, but I could see some uncertainty in her eyes. She clutched a plushie she had been sleeping with tightly to her chest, this one a stuffed cat, obviously her favorite. In its gleaming eyes, I caught sight of my reflection. I was small, slender. My scales weren't black like the first demon's, nor did they have a long oval head like Mr. Brightside's. My body was turquoise, and on the top of my head there were two short golden horns. Quite handsome, really. Um, what's your name? Asked the girl. That's right. I wasn't Arthur. Not really. He didn't need me anymore. Or was it the other way around? I guess some things were still foggy, but it didn't matter. This girl, we were similar, walking the same path. It would be a good partnership. Call me Alphonse, I said. Nice to meet you, Before she could finish, I put a finger to my lips and smiled. There's no need for such formality, I said. Think of me as your other half. What happens now? Asked the girl. Just close your eyes, I said. Everything will be different in the morning. I opened my mouth and was surprised to see a red light emerge. I wasn't pulling anything from the girl. In fact, it was the other way around. She was pulling my energy into herself. I felt the pull inward start again, felt the familiar sensation in the core of my being. This time, I closed my eyes and embraced the transfer. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the tree. The girl was there, and now I knew her name. Felice. Is the snake still there? She asked. It's gone, I said. I'm certain it went home. In fact, I think it's time for you to do the same. Good, she said. I'm tired of this dream. I searched her memories and found the right images to conjure. Below the tree, a familiar street appeared leading to a small two-story house at the end of a cul-de-sac. Is that it? I asked. The girl smiled and nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. I haven't been back in ages, she said, her voice coming out in a whisper. I took her hand and we floated down from the tree onto the newly formed sidewalk. I heard her giggle as we started toward her house. Felice Thomas woke with a gentle smile on her face. She usually hated the mornings. That's when the pain was the worst. This morning, however, it wasn't so bad. Her body still hurt, but the pain didn't feel so overwhelming. She couldn't remember the dream she had last night, but she could feel that it had been a good one. It will pass. You can beat it, said a voice in her head. Yes, she thought. You're right. I can beat this. She looked out the window and almost laughed to herself. It was so unlike her to be so positive. Down below, she could see the road leading to the main entrance of Memorial Hospital. A beige Prius was driving toward the gate. That would be her mother, already back with the cake she had asked her to sneak in. There was a knock at her door, and in walked Jin Matsuda. He carried his usual sketch pad and a box of charcoal pencils. His hair was a mess, but he didn't have the usual dark circles under his eyes. She always thought of him as an old man, but the artist was really only about 25, not even 10 years older than her. She didn't know why he came, but she was grateful. Maybe it was because she was the only other half-decent artist in a ward full of depressed cancer patients. As he set up the room for their drawing session, she found herself suppressing a smile. She was genuinely glad he was there. She saw her reflection in the window, grinning back at her like an idiot, and she buried her face in her pillow. Hey, said Jin, no sleeping, it's time to work. God, if he caught her grinning at him like that, she would die. He'd probably think she had a crush on him or something. I'm not sleeping, I'm just bored waiting for you, she said, trying to mimic her usual tone. But she couldn't force away the slight smile that clung to her lips. She felt lighter today, healthier. Maybe it was a turning point. Jin cocked an eyebrow at her, but he didn't say anything as he went about arranging the sketch paper. It's our first step, said the voice in her head. as her cheeks flushed red. This wasn't like her at all, but then again, maybe it was. Maybe this was the hope her mother and the priest and all the other adults she couldn't stand had been trying to get her to find. She sighed. Whatever it was, it felt good. She watched her mother walking across the parking lot. The slender woman looked up at her and waved. Without even thinking, she smiled and went back. Then she turned to Jin as he started to sketch an outline of some otherworldly creation that had popped into his head. At that moment, the strangest feeling struck her. She was sure that he had almost certainly had a wonderful dream himself. I hope he did, she thought, as she picked up one of the pencils and let a sudden surge of inspiration pour out onto the page. The end.